So let's talk about this bumper a little bit. This is our mid-width style, customizable right out of the box, meaning all the cladding and mesh that we provide with this does not come bolted on. So if you want to customize that a different color, you very well can. Also, there's a plate here to mount your winch right up on. And also here, this little slot, you'll be able to put a 20-inch light bar. Now this bumper you can customize on the Carltech website, and you can have it just as it sits with no bar. You can have a bull bar or our Stinger option. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can put a winch on. This will almost fit any size winch that you have. It also comes with a fair lead and 2 heavy-duty tow hooks to get you out of a jam when you're out on the trail. Now, this bumper comes with all the necessary hardware to mount it to your vehicle, as well as all the hardware for your adjustable light bar brackets. And we also have a stainless steel front badge, which has our logo on it, JAX. Now, if you want to learn more about this bumper, you can check it out at crawltechrevolution.com. Now, let's get installing this bumper. So now our first step to disassembling the factory front bumper is we're going to remove all these plastic shields. This isn't absolutely necessary, it just gives you a little bit more room to work with. So with these little push pins, we have these nice little pliers here. You just get in the grooves basically and pull them out. And then if you don't have this, you can just use a clip tool or a screwdriver and just get in the groove on either side. Pop it out a little bit and just do that, and that's for all of these. Now once you remove all those clips underneath here, and you can kind of see all these slots where those clips are at, there's 2 bolts right here that hold this plastic piece on, or you can use an 8mm socket and remove both of those, and that should just slide right out of there. Make sure you have all the clips. That's all that is. And then you couldn't get complete access to this plastic cover here. One of the clips was being blocked by that plastic piece. So just grab this last piece. This piece should come off. Now we're just going to remove these 2 bolts that hold this little brace on here. These are a 16mm socket. Move that one. Move that one. And they're just like hooked in. You can kind of see. They just hook into those slots, so when you do get it off, just pull up and out. Now we're just going to remove this clip that holds this plug on. There's just use your clip tool, and then once you get that off, this just gives you a little bit more access to remove this plug. So you just have to find the sweet spot of it and unplug it. Some of them are really tight. You just have to work it just like that. Now to remove the bumper, it just has 8 studs that hold it on, 4 on each side. So there's 2 right here with these nuts, and on the inside the same way there's just 2 studs with 2 nuts on them. So we're going to start by just removing the 2 inside ones. And you probably have to use an 18mm socket here, and if you might have to use a swivel also. So go ahead and remove those. After, you might have to use a swivel, but just remove these 4 nuts for now. Now the 2 outside ones on each side, loosen them, but do not fully remove them because you don't want your bumper to just fall off. So just take your 18mm socket, and you'll notice probably as soon as you loosen this one, it might shift a little bit. Just like that, and just make sure that you can, I would just put them on hand tight once you get them all the way loose, just so that bumper doesn't go anywhere. Do that on each side. Now on the top here, there's just this plastic trim piece that is bolted to the bumper itself. There's just 2 clips to hold this on, so you may have to use an actual clip tool if you can't get this in here, which we probably will. So just pop those off. Pop that out. Do this on this side too. There's not very much access room here, as you can see, so they are a pain just depending on which way they're installed. And just pull up on those, and then go ahead and remove your other nuts. And then once we get those removed, you're just going to kind of shimmy this off here. Remove your front bumper. Now, since we got this bumper out, I just want to show you guys kind of what we're working with here. These are the 4 studs on each side that we're trying to access to remove this bumper. They just sit in these plates right here, and then they're just bolted with the nuts. That's why I remove these, and it's not a lot, but it just helps a little bit more access to get your socket onto those nuts. This plastic just barely covers it, so that's why we remove all that plastic stuff. Now here we have our front bumper. Now this bumper is actually super easy to install, and I'll show you why here. So these plates just mimic the factory plates that we removed the front bumper from, and we provide you with new hardware here. So this hardware goes from the front side back, and we have these nice little retaining clips. So those just slide over the bolts, and they are pretty tight. So I found the best way, you can either work it, or you just take a socket and you kind of just hold that backside and you push on that clip. And these are gonna hold your studs just like kind of how the factory bumper is. It just has those studs holding. So this just makes it really, really easy to install when you go to get to this point. Now, as you can see here, I have all these bolts and retaining clips in. Now, one of the reasons this is super easy to install is because of these clips, but also because we use slotted holes. Other manufacturers use studs that are welded in, and that just doesn't quite line up sometimes with variances in the frames and the bumpers and stuff. So with us slotting these holes and allowing a little bit more free movement, it's a lot easier to install. And we also provide you with these non-locking nuts. So these are serrated flange nuts. So you don't actually have to hold the backside of the bolt to tighten that down. So you don't have to have a wrench. You can just literally just tighten it down, and it'll just catch it and tighten it down itself. So it's a lot easier to tighten when we get to that point. Now, once you have all those bolts and retaining clips in, we're gonna go ahead and install our bumper. Now, you might have to roll the bumper a little bit and then slide it on and just line up those holes, the factory holes here. And once you push that on, just start a couple of the nuts to hold it on for you. Now, once you get one of the nuts started and it's held on, we're just gonna go ahead and start throwing all of our other nuts on. You may have to just push the bumper a little bit and start those nuts and just start all 8 of those. Now, once you have all those started, we're just gonna go ahead and tighten it up. We're gonna take an 11/16 socket, and we're just gonna tighten all these up. Now, kind of do a cross pattern, go from one side to another, and you'll just see it start to pull itself in. Now, once you got your bumper tightened up, our next step is gonna be putting all of our cladding on. So I'm gonna start with this mesh here. So we just give you some stainless black hardware here. And these holes are threaded. So a lot of other bumper companies give you bolts with nuts on the backside, and you have to kind of maneuver your hand back there. But here, these holes are threaded, so it's just a super easy, nice install. Just grab those, thread them in. Now, once you got all these started, we're just gonna go ahead and tighten this down. This is a 1/8" Allen socket. We're just gonna run all these in. Now, once you have these mesh plates installed, we're gonna install our front face cladding here. Now, you can see that these holes are countersunk, so those bolts are countersunk bolts to fit right in those heads, just like these ones. These are all tabbed except these bottom two, but these bottom two are super easy to access just from under here. So those will be using a nut, but the rest of them, we'll just be putting them in through the hole. Now, once you get all these bolts started, and these bottom two, remember, have the flange nuts here, we're just gonna tighten all these up. This is a 5/32 Allen bit. Just go ahead and just snug all those up. Now, once we have our bumper installed and all the cladding, we're gonna go ahead and install our bumper fairlead winch plate here. So you can see on the top of the bumper, there's just 4 holes, just as well as on this brag here. So we're just gonna set this on here for now and just line those holes up as best you can. Now that we have our winch plate on, we're gonna go ahead and install our winch. First, you're gonna have somebody help you run it through the holes on the bumper for the wire, and then make sure that your winch cable gets pushed through the fairlead, and then just set this on the fairlead bracket on the bumper. Now, once you get the winch installed onto the bumper, we're gonna go ahead and come to the bottom of the bumper, and you can just see the 4 holes. We're gonna put the bolt through the bumper and the fairlead plate that the winch sits on. We're gonna go ahead and start all these bolts. Now, in reference to the winch, there's all sorts of different kind of manufacturings for these aftermarket winches. So this is just how this particular winch goes on our bumper. So when you do go to install the winch, just make sure that you follow your manufacturer instructions for installing that said winch. Now, once you have your winch installed, we're gonna go ahead and install our Crawltech fairlead. Now, we have 3 different color options for these fairleads. As you can see here, we have orange, we have just bare aluminum, and then a black one. So we're gonna take our synthetic rope, and you can only use these with synthetic rope, because if you use them with a steel cable, it'll just destroy this aluminum. So we're gonna pull our synthetic rope through this, Take our stainless steel button head bolt, line it up with the hole on the winch plate, and just take your flange nut and put it on the bolt and do that on each side. Now once you have your Krautek fair lead mounted, you can see here that it is slotted quite a bit. So when you have it all the way pulled down, you'll see you have gaps in your here. So we're just gonna wanna make sure that we cover all those gaps and it's even the whole way around. And then we're gonna take our 7/32 Allen bit, tighten those down. Those are flange nuts, straight flange nuts, so we don't have to hold them. And just tighten those down. Now once you have the fair lead tightened down, we're just gonna go ahead and tighten our winch against it. Make that nice and snug so you don't hear it flapping in the wind. Now that's how you install our Blaze Series bumper for a 2018 and up JL. And I'll tell you what guys, this bumper really transforms the look of this Jeep. But if you have more questions about this, go to KrautekRevolution.com. And a side note, these bumpers are in stock, ready to ship.